Hello everyone, I'm just here to provide updates on the value added tax proposed increase. In the part 1 of my Nigerian tax law change YouTube video, I mentioned that the new rate for the VAT was 10%. However, the legislative committee actually decided to keep the rate at 7.5% for now. The original proposal was that the rate will increase to 10% in 2025, and then it would increase to 12.5% from 2026 to 2029, and then it would be 15% from 2030 upward. But they've decided, or they are deciding, to keep the rate at 7.5% for now. As a business owner, you still have to watch very closely, because there is still that intent in the proposal to increase this VAT rate sometime in the future. So if the rate increases, everything that I mentioned, as compliance action checklist in my part 1 of the tax law video will still apply to you. And then I also mentioned that some items, some necessities will still be, VAT free. So I just wanted to give examples of, those essential products or essential services that will still be VAT free. Yeah, I have basic food items. I have medical and pharmaceutical products, including medical herbal products. I have educational materials, books, and then I also have tuition for nursery, primary, university, education, and then I have agricultural products and services. So now that, they decided to keep the rate at 7.5%, what they are actually now focusing on as regards to VAT is emphasizing on actually collecting the VAT. So they are putting efforts into making sure that they collect this VAT. They are also trying to block all the loopholes and reduce, tax avoidance. And then they are also bringing in more firms and more sectors into this tax net. So there were some companies or some products that used to be VAT free, or it just wasn't clear if they were to pay VAT or not. So now they are actually putting it out there that these companies or these sectors now need to pay VAT. And I will just mention those sectors real quick. So based on multiple analysis of the tax bill that is proposed, these sectors will now clearly fall into the VAT net, or it would no longer have the relief status that it used to have. So the first one is digital services, e-commerce, or foreign supplied services. So this bill extends liability to non-residents supplying taxable goods and services in Nigeria, including on digital platforms. It also emphasizes significant economic presence. So if they are offering services to a lot of Nigerians, or they are, selling a product, or they are selling a service to a lot of Nigerians, now, those guys would be required to register for VAT and remit the VAT to the federal government. What this means is that suppliers of streaming services, software as a service, all the e-commerce platforms, all the digital content, they will now need to register for VAT. They will need to charge VAT, and then they will now need to remit the VAT to the federal government. The second one is free zone exports, customs, territory services. So now VAT and withholding tax will apply to services provided to free zone entities from within the Nigerian customs territory. So entities in free trade zones or export processing zones may now face changes to how VAT is treated when they are supplying to domestic markets. The implication is that service providers to or within these free zones will now need to register for VAT, and they would need to make sure that they are compliant with all the VAT laws. The third one is aviation transport related services. So this includes airlines, aircraft imports, spare parts imports. These guys are now more firmly in the VAT net under these new tax reforms. So, what this means is that clients that are in the aviation business, aircraft repair, maintenance, those that import parts, those that provide services in Nigeria should all review their VAT liability, because now they have to register, they have to charge, and then they now have to remit the taxes, the VAT, to the federal government. The next is non-oil exported services and goods. While non-oil exports are still, zero rated, exporters that may have previously operated outside of the VAT system would need to confirm that this is still true for them, and they need to ensure that they are documenting properly for their input tax recovery. So next, let's talk about services to non-resident customers and intangible assets. This new tax reform brings into the VAT net non-resident persons providing goods or services to persons in Nigeria via digital means or without physical presence. So now the significant economic presence rule is going to be really emphasized, and with this rule you do not even have to physically be in Nigeria, provided you are selling goods or you're providing services to people in Nigeria. You may be required to register for VAT, to collect VAT, and to remit the VAT to the federal government. So the implication is that non-resident service suppliers like consultants, digital content suppliers would need to check whether they need to register for VAT, whether they need to charge the VAT, and whether they need to remit the VAT. In my next video, I will talk about other tax changes that you can expect to see in the year 2026, and exactly how they are going to affect you as an individual, as a business owner, or as an investor. And again, I would also mention what is in it for the government. What are they hoping to achieve by each of these tax reforms?